Today I'm going to be showing you the Forever Greenery Suite collection. In this suite, there's the Forever Fern bundle, and inside the bundle we have the Forever Fern stamp set, the Forever Flourishing dies. Also in the suite collection we have the Greenery embossing folders, gold hoops, Forever Greenery trim, Forever Gold laser cut specialty paper, and Forever Greenery Designer Series paper. You can find the Forever Greenery Suite collection on page 108, 109, and 110. I'm going to show you some samples with me using items from the Forever Greenery Suite collection. First few samples that I'm going to show you, I'm kind of making sure that I'm using the Designer Series paper, showing that off of it. First part here, we're stamping using the Forever Fern stamp set, and then of course this beautiful Designer Series paper using the trim, and the papers that we're using are Just Jade and Whisper White. This next one, again showing off that beautiful Designer Series paper, using the stamp set, the Greenery embossing folder. The colors we are using are Soft Seafoam, Shaded Spruce, and Whisper White. This next card, I'm also trying to use that Designer Series paper, and I cut it and then kind of separated it out, and also using the Forever Flourishing dies, and again the Forever Greenery trim and the stamp set. And the colors used on this are Pear Pizzazz, Garden Green, Berry Vanilla, and of course Early Espresso. This next card, again I'm using that Designer Series paper, kind of cut it up, patchworked it kind of on the card, stamped using the greeting. You can do this. And I'm also using the Forever Flourishing dies and the trim. And the colors I used on this are Pretty Peacock, Pear Pizzazz, and Whisper White. This is a great card to use when you need to use up some of your smaller pieces of Designer Series paper, and showcasing many of the different sheets that are in the set. Also using the stamp set. And the colors used on this was Pretty Peacock, Just Jade, just a little bit right there, and the Whisper White. This card here again showing off that beautiful Designer Series paper, using the stamp set for the greeting, also using the Forever Gold laser cut Designer Series paper, and then also I used the trim but I separated it. Colors that I used on this are Garden Green and Whisper White. This next card, I cut my designer paper on an angle there and separated it and stamped my stamp using the stamp set, and then the colors that I used on this are Pretty Peacock and Whisper White. These next couple cards I just wanted to kind of show very simple stamping. This one I used Gray Granite and Whisper White. I also used the Gray Granite ribbon, and just very easy stamping and a little bit of layering. I'm going to actually leave that there to kind of show you how you can change it up just slightly. This one I used Sahara Sand and Very Vanilla, and on this one I used the Stitch Shapes dies, but on this one I used the Stitch Nested Labels die. And again on this one I used the trim, but I also added some pearls there. This next one, again very simple stamping, and the colors that I used on this are Bumblebee and Early Espresso. And this one, very simple stamping, but just by layering it up a little bit, adding a circle from a punch, and then added some pearls and that trim. Colors that I used on this are Just Jade, Shaded Spruce, and Whisper White. These next ones I wanted to kind of show off where I used a little bit more of the Forever Gold laser cut Designer Series paper. So a lot of them are going to kind of showcase a little bit of that. And so on this one I also used a Forever Flourishing dies and the colors that I used on this is the Soft Seafoam. It's also Garden Green, Crumb Cake, Early Espresso, and Very Vanilla. And then I also used the embossing folder, the Greenery embossing folder. So this next one, again showing that Forever Gold laser cut specialty paper, but I used quite a lot of different things on this one. So I'm using the die that comes in the suite, but I also added the Stitched Nested Labels die, and also the Stitched Shapes die, gold metallic pearls, the trim, and then the colors that I chose to use on this were the Whisper White, the Soft Seafoam, and the Pretty Peacock. On this one here, of course I use a stamp set where I stamped the hello several times. Of course the Designer Series paper there. And I used the Tasteful Textile 3D folder both on the designer paper, I don't know if you can see that, and also on the Whisper White background as well. I embossed both of those. I used the metallic pearls, and again showing off that laser cut paper. This next one I stamped using the Forever Fern stamp set, but I also decided, I think this is the only one of my samples that I brought in a different stamp set. So I used the Ornate Thanks stamp set, and then of course showcasing that beautiful Forever Gold laser cut paper, and then I also added in those pearls. I also used the Tasteful Textile embossing folder on the white part of this after I had stamped. And the colors that I'm using on this are Shaded Spruce, both in the paper and the ink, and also Whisper White. This next one, I wanted to kind of show you how I went about trying to decide on the designer paper that I wanted to use. So what I did is I laid down the designer paper and I put the whole all 6 of them down as I was trying to decide which paper I wanted to use. And you can kind of turn it. And I ended up using this one here because I liked how the stripes lined up. You can kind of see as you flip through, just by laying that down, you can look at all 6 of them all at the same time and decide which ones you may like to use. How when I'm in my stamping room, when I'm trying to decide like what paper I want to use, what looks best. So I just want you to kind of see again how easy it is to just quickly flip. Whoop. There. So you get an idea when designing a card. And so like I said, I decided to go with the stripes, and I liked how the laser cut kind of lined up with those stripes on that paper. And so I decided to trim down exactly to the size of the laser cut paper, using that beautiful gold side of it, and then added in using the Forever Flourishing dies, stamped the stamp set and on the stitched shapes die. The paper that I used is the Pretty Peacock and also Whisper White. Okay, this one is another one showcasing that beautiful laser cut designer paper. Here I use the hoop, and I also use the dies and the Tasteful Textile 3D folder. I also used that on the white part there, and then also used another piece of that laser cut paper and the trim. And the colors that I used on this was Calypso Coral, the Whisper White, and Garden Green. I have a few more cards I would like to show you, just a couple more, and then a couple other projects. Okay, on this one, again showcasing showing off the gold hoops using the gold trim, and then also the laser cut paper. Here I stamped using the Forever Fern and then cut it out with the die, and then also stamped the greeting from the stamp set. I also used the Greenery embossing folder, and the colors that I chose on this one is the Misty Moonlight, one of our new in colors, the Soft Seafoam, and Garden Green. Here's showing another one of our new in colors. It's the Cinnamon Cider in color, Early Espresso, and Very Vanilla. So I used the die cut, the trim, added some pearls, and the stamp set, and of course that great designer series paper. Here's the last card I'm going to be showing you today, and here I'm showing again using the dies, and here's where I stamped it and then used the die, and also the greeting from the stamp set. I also used the embossing folder, the Greenery embossing folder, and the colors that I used on this are Crumb Cake, Very Vanilla, and Just Jade. Now I'd like to show you how you can use this in scrapbooking. He's using the window sheets for the scrapbooking, but if you still like to use your 12 by 12, I'll show you how you can use these very same ones, the same pieces that I just did on a 12 by 12. So you can use them in a smaller size or also on a 12 by 12. So on this, I use the dies, and this is one whole die here, but then I cut the soft seafoam and I used half of it behind and half in front to kind of give it a different look, and I did that on both areas there. Just used our pearls, our gold pearls, used the stamp set and the trim in different areas, and that beautiful gold laser cut designer paper. We have two more projects to show you. Oh, I forgot to tell you, I used Pretty Peacock. Of course, the Whisper White was on the just on the 12 by 12, and soft seafoam, and of course the designer series paper. Okay, here's showing you a handled bag. I just really love this gold laser cut paper, and very easy to just add the designer series paper, the stamp set for a nice greeting. This would make a great gift bag for a wedding, the love and laughter forever after. And then of course added the trim, tied it in a bow, separated it up. I love how that turned out. The colors that I used on here are the Pretty Peacock, very vanilla, the soft seafoam, and of course that designer paper. And here's the last project that I did. And this is one of our paper pumpkin boxes that I turned, kind of turned it around, and to show the brown inside of the box is now on the outside. And then decorated it up using the designer series paper on the edges, and of course on the top, showing that lovely gold specialty paper, and the hoop and the trim and the stamp set, and then I added an extra ribbon. And so what I used on here is of course the stamp set Forever Fern, the flourishing dies, and the trim, and then the ribbon that I used here is Early Espresso Faux Suede trim. And then the colors that I used on here are Garden Green, Pear Pizzazz, the Early Espresso, and Whisper White, and then also right in here the Pear Pizzazz. So those are all the projects that I have for you today. I had a lot of fun using the Forever Green Suite collection. I don't think there was anything in this suite that I didn't like. There have been a couple times where there's like maybe an embellishment or something, but I loved using all parts of it. I hope you got some great ideas today. Happy stamping!